Hey, it's Katie. I hope everyone's doing well. Today we're going to be talking about An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This book was really great. It had a lot of really great elements, I think, of like different kinds of characters, and it really brought an amazing new kind of world that I could see being realistic even within our world, aside from like the more fantastical elements. Definitely this one got a 9.7 out of the 10, so a really great read, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it. Before we get into like the great elements of the plot and the writing, we need to talk about these covers, because this whole book is just beautiful, and like they have really intricate maps inside the covers, and it's like Charlie Bone when you open up and you would see the family tree, or Aragon when you see the map. It just really kind of gets the book going and gets you excited to read it, and it's kind of fun once you've like gotten partway in, like you're starting to understand the world that you're reading about, and you can kind of look and be like, oh, so that's what that is, that's where that would be. And I'm not a very visual person, like I don't picture things when I read or try to like imagine like when they describe things. I don't really pay much attention to like the geography or like relative to each other that much, unless it's like relevant to the story. Like I need to know that like, oh, this is this direction and it's far away, so like if we're going there it's gonna take a while. But like I really enjoy it, and I'm sure if you are a person who's very visual when you read, it's even better, and even brings the movie that you kind of play in your mind more to life. So An Ember in the Ashes is set in this world where there are marshals and there are scholars, and there are also like other races of people, but they're kind of not relevant to like the region that we're in right now. Like some are mentioned, like there are tribesmen that you kind of hear about and you see in one particular scene, but not other than that. Like they're not really very relevant to the plot, at least of this first book. But anyway, so you will come into this book where one of your protagonists is a scholar. Now, the scholars are kind of the ostracized race. Like they're really beaten down. Some of them are slaves. They're not allowed to like go to school. They can't be literate. They can't really have a lot of good jobs. Like some of them have trades, but that's a rare few, and it means a lot if you can't have that job. And they have very strict laws, and they can be killed for next to nothing. It's kind of similar to the dynamic, I would say, of like District 12's people in Catching Fire, and the dynamic that they had with the peacekeepers. So our female protagonist, Leia, is one of these scholars, and you're not really sure at first. You kind of don't know what the deal is. You know, she lives with her grandparents and her brother, who's a little bit older. I don't know if it specified how much older. You don't know what, you know her parents are dead. You find out that she also had an older sister who died with her parents, and it's shortly after the beginning you find out that like they were killed by the Empire, and it's kind of implied before them, but it just takes a minute to explicitly state it. And so the Empire and like the ruling class is the marshals, and they have the control. They have these brutal guards called the Masks that are trained viciously and ruthlessly, and they're amazing and impossible to escape. And so one night, Leia is at home waiting for her brother Darren to come home, because he kind of just runs off sometimes, and she doesn't know where, and she's always really worried about him. And so he comes in the window, and she found a drawing of something in his sketchbook, and she's really worried because she thinks it means something bad. Like he's either working for the Empire or he's working against them as part of the resistance, both of which are really dangerous options at this point in time. And after a few minutes of like talking to him about it, and he doesn't really reveal what's going on. He just says, no, I'm not working for the Empire, of course. And then he says like, no, I'm not with the resistance. And she's trying to find out what's going on. And then all of a sudden he hears that the marshals have come, like, and they're raiding the house. And she kind of says like, whenever there are night raids, that means they don't want witnesses, instead of wanting to make an example out of people. So, her brother is taken to prison, and she's basically left alone in the world, because she manages to run away while they're trying to like take Darren and like manage him. And so she's kind of in this mindset where she's like, I can't believe I ran. I can't believe that I just left him, and I have to find him. Like, he's my only family. So she goes into this book trying to find a way to break him out of prison. And along the way, she comes into contact with the resistance. And basically, like, the way it comes down to it is, oh, like, we'll help you break him out of prison, but only if you spy for us in the most dangerous place to be. So she's has to decide if she wants to work as a slave in the academy where the masks are trained, like the vicious, brutal security force that like kind of enforces the Marshals' law and power and is like works as the Empire's kind of regulatory and like very dangerous class. And she would be working for the most dangerous of them all, the commandant, who's kind of like the principal, who's like the most lethal woman ever and like super duper scary and stuff. So that's kind of where we land with Leia. Now with our other protagonist, Elias is actually a student at this academy, Blackkeep. He is training to be a mask, and he's going to graduate in like 1 or 2 days when we start the novel. And you come to find out that the commandant hates him because he's her son, who she tried to get rid of when he was born, and like she just loathes him with everything in her, and she like has tried to like get rid of him and cause problems for him, but he's just like, you know, really smart and really hardworking and just unwilling to give up. So he kind of like has made it through despite all of her attempts to like thwart him. But and Elias hates the Empire. He hates working as a mask. He hates the things that they're trained to do. He hates that if you desert, like if little kids, because you start training at the academy at the age of 6, and he hates that if one of those young kids decides that they don't want to do it and they run away, they get beaten until they die. And he thinks that's despicable, and he hates it with everything in him. So he has this plan to run away before more elements are brought in, and kind of without divulging the plot, something ends up happening where he has to decide, like, does he still want to run away? Can he run away and be successful? Does he want to stay? Can he help more people if he stays and can, like, find a way to do so with a position of power? So they're both in very different positions and very kind of trapped by their situations. If he tries to leave and is caught, he'll be killed. If he shows any dissent, he'll be killed. And if she is caught, she'll be killed. So they're very paralleled, kind of, in terms of where they're at. So as you can tell, there's a lot of like really intricate elements within this plot. There are a lot of really great minor characters that I really liked, even though they were not in a lot of the plot. Like, a lot of it goes on inside our protagonists' heads or on experiences where they're kind of alone and kind of like rotating through scenarios and like life and stuff. But I did really enjoy it. I loved this fantasy world that she created. I don't even know. It had kind of like a legend feel, which is not to say, like, I don't want to keep comparing it to other books, because it's definitely something very unique, very individual, and something very different from things that I've read in the past. But I think that there were, like, the way that it made me feel was very similar when I was reading that first book, and like, oh, this is so cool, and I love these characters, and they're so different, but so alike in the way that their differences play out. And I don't know, it was a really great book. This is going to be it for the non-spoiler section, so if you haven't read it yet, go do so. Check it out if you have any way possible. I'll have the links below, and we will get on with the spoilers. Okay, I'm still reeling from this book, and there were so many frustrating scenes. Like, it's so hard, I feel like, as a reader with worlds like this, where you have a protagonist who's in a dystopian world, but not in the shoes of someone who's being hurt by the government, but of someone who's part of the government, because you want them to do the right thing, And it's so hard because like you also don't want them to die. And just for a lot of Elias's chapters, I was just so frustrated because I wanted him so badly to be able to like do the right thing. Like he knew that these things were wrong, and he supported freedom and equality for the two classes of people, and yet still he had to do things that were awful. And it's, you know, it's necessary because of the positions that they're in, but that doesn't stop it from making me want to rip every single piece of my hair out of my head. I was honestly kind of nervous about reading this because I've heard a lot of really good things in terms of like booktube and recommendations, but I don't know anyone personally who's read it before, so I was kind of nervous. But I opened the book, and honestly, from the dedication alone, I felt like it was going to be really great. Because when do you have to highlight in a dedication? That's quality. Her writing was so brilliant. Her characters were amazing and so complex and full of feelings, and they made mistakes, and they had to live with guilt and all sorts of other emotions that I feel like are not prevalent enough in protagonists, especially in like young protagonists. They're kind of, in worlds like these, they tend to be someone who's very like inherently perfect, and they're like, oh no, the world is so awful, but you love the protagonist because they're so not a part of that. And I think the really great thing about these characters was they recognized that the world was bad, and they made conscious decisions to kind of try to combat the terrible things going on, but they also were still like real humans who like made mistakes and felt the guilt afterwards and had to kind of try to come to terms with the things that they'd done. And I loved it. Oh my god, when Elias like went to kill Helene, I'm still unsure on that one. I've never been so upset in my whole life. I really hated, to be honest, the whole Keenan and Leia and Helene and Elias, but also Elias and Leia thing. Double love triangles really tend to piss me off, and in this case, it was no different. And I think for me, something that's very, very frustrating, a trope that just kind of drives me crazy, is when you have this person that has been in a protagonist's life forever. They're their best friend, they've never had problems, they always find a way to like work through it and come closer, and that's what they do. And then all of a sudden a new character walks on scene and it changes everything about their relationship, and suddenly they can't be friends anymore, or their friendship changes and they can't resolve their conflicts, or the emotions that they had suddenly disappear for this new person. And it's such a recurring trope, and it just drives me crazy. Like, I wanted Elias and Helene to be together, even though like she pissed me off sometimes. Like, I felt like they had years and years of friendship, and that shouldn't be something that is just thrown away, especially with what they'd gone through together. That just makes it even stronger of a bond. So the idea that it was just kind of like, boom, like that's not how real friendship works. And it just really bothers me, because this is not the only book that does that. Outside of that, obviously, like, it was a really great book, and that didn't, for me, it didn't really detract from the reading experience. It was kind of just like a, not again, but the whole third trial killed me. I understand that the augurs wanted to pick like the best emperor for the job, but I felt that that was really unnecessary. And I get that that's the point, is like to show their cruelty, and like that like they're willing to like sacrifice what it takes to get what they need, in terms of like a leader. But it really frustrated me that like all of these people had to kill their childhood friends for just one trial. I'm so frustrated, and that it was so quick and just gone, like all of these people that they live with forever. And it's just so frustrating, because like those people were the finest of your academy, and they went through all these years of suffering and training for what? To die as part of some elaborate tournament? That's not fair. Like, you could put the people through the same pain and have it be over if it were like all inside of their heads or a simulation or something. I'm really excited to find out who Cook is. For a minute before it said like she was old, or like maybe it said before and I just wasn't paying attention. But there was like a brief moment where I thought maybe she's Leia's older sister and they thought she was dead, but really she's just been here because they thought it would be more painful for her. But like she's like 70, so that's not it. But she's somewhat significant, and I'm really excited to find out who it is. I don't really have a prediction as of yet, but that'll be good. I'm so glad that Izzy got out safely. Like, yes, she's such a pure-hearted, wonderful character, and I'm so glad that she got to kind of have somewhat of like a safe, happy ending. I really, really appreciated that, like, when Keenan was like, I'll take care of you, I will figure all of this out, and Leia was like, something's wrong here, and I can't put my finger on it, but something is. And because that's so true, I feel like in real life, sometimes people say things, and the way they word them is, like, very kind, and your, like, first instinct is like, oh, yeah, thanks, but when you think about it, it's like, but that's not what I want, that's not really helpful long term, and I don't need you to do that. I don't need you to baby me. I don't know. And especially I feel like as like a woman, that is just something that is very prevalent. Like, people say it like they're doing you a favor that you didn't ask them to do, and while it's well-meaning, it's kind of a backhanded compliment sometimes. And I liked that she addressed that, and the fact that she didn't exactly put words to it, because it's something that's very hard to vocalize precisely. I'm also really nervous to see what goes down with Helene being the blood trike. Like, I'm really worried about her, and while there are like a lot of issues that I have with her, like the fact that she doesn't care that there's an entire race of people enslaved, like, pisses me off. And like, I'm kind of putting that down to like the fact that she's been raised to believe in loyalty as the most important thing. And kind of like brainwashing, so like from birth rather than a choice, but I still don't think that makes it okay. But like, I feel that because she's already viewing them as human, there's room for her to kind of grow and realize how completely wrong this whole system is and how wrong her thoughts on the matter are. I think that's definitely a character arc that we could see, that I would love to see. And in the meantime, I'm really worried about what's going to happen with her as blood trike, her having to work for Marcus, and kind of just her being alone after years of her and Elias relying on each other. Definitely, I think when we have relationships like that, where there are two people that have been best friends and kept each other alive their whole life, and then suddenly they're ripped apart, while they're both very competent humans, I think that you grow very reliant on people, even emotionally, and I'm definitely worried to see what goes on there. I was really hoping for the fourth trial, the trial of loyalty, that it would be like some kind of trick. Like, before we got there, I thought it would be something where everybody assumed, oh, loyalty to the Empire, but it was really like loyalty to the people who matter, and it was going to be something where Elias had to save Helene or save something less important, like an object that was like precious, and that it would kind of be like, oh, but like, you're being loyal, because I feel like he definitely was loyal to himself and to his morals and to good values. So I don't know, like, it just frustrates me that, I don't know, I shouldn't have expected that, but I was really hoping. So, I mean, but I think this is good, because so many times in YA fiction, especially fantasy series and dystopian series, we have a lot of this kind of loopholes and things where we expect something bad to happen, and then, oh no, there's a Hail Mary, because really this whole thing was a test. So I think sometimes we need reminders that not everything is a test. Some people really are horrible, some people will follow through with the threats, and sometimes what it seems to be is exactly what it is. So I think that was something that I needed at this point in like my reading journey, kind of, because I've grown so used to there being an out, that I needed to be reminded that that's not something to count on. Overall, though, I really adored this book. It was such a great reading experience, and I really felt Like I was in that world, and it was very different from anything I've read in a long, long time, probably ever. Definitely lots of different elements from different styles of writing combined, which I really enjoyed. And I love our characters. I love that they're problematic and real, but also acknowledge those things and they know about their flaws. And I love where our plot is going. And I'm so, so excited. I just picked up the second book, A Torch in the Night, and I'm really excited to read it. So that's going to be good. But check it out. Have a good one.